Good morning, colleagues. Once again, my name is Kosie Tuntuli. I'm from the Research Capacity Development Unit. I would like to welcome each and every one of you who attended today's workshop. Before I move forward, I would like to notify everyone that this workshop is recorded for the purpose of keeping the record as well as sharing the recording with those who were not able to attend today's and those who attended but wants to go back to the recording of this workshop. So can I get a thumbs up for that if you can hear me clearly and that you give a permit for me to record the session? Thank you so much, colleagues, for that. As I've mentioned, I'm from the Research Capacity Development Unit, and this workshop is organized by the unit titled Building Trust and Credibility in Research, Upholding Academic Integrity as a Researcher. So it is my pleasure to welcome each and every one of you, the PDRFs, the academics, the researchers, the supervisors, and staff members, and any students who attended today's workshop. Why this workshop matters, or why are we having this workshop for today? In today's academic landscape, trust, credibility, and ethical conduct are the foundations of meaningful and impactful research. As researchers, our responsibility goes beyond producing results. It includes ensuring that our methods, data, and contributions are rooted in honestly, transparently, and respect for scholarly standards. So our facilitator for today is Dr. Lorenzo David, who will go deeper into that and give us his insight or his expertise on the topic of discussion for today. Before we move forward, I would like to go through some housekeeping rules. Colleagues, I will enable all your mics. However, you are kindly requested to keep your mic muted. Unless you do have a question, just raise your hand. I will notify our facilitator, Dr. Lorenzo, that someone has a raise a hand, and we will attend to your question. However, you can also type in the chat if you do have a question, and I will notify as well Dr. Lorenzo to attend your question. Please make sure that no sound comes from your background, and that if you have anything or any contributions, you are more than welcome to participate. Let's engage and make this workshop a discussion and engage as much as we can. As I've mentioned earlier, that the recording of this workshop is recorded, and the recording will be posted to your model communities. If you are a PDRF, it will be posted to a PDRF or postdoc model community. And if we are a supervisor, it will be posted to your supervisor community. If we are not enrolled in any of the mentioned community, please email us on RCD inquiries or supervision calls at uj.ac.za, and then we will then enroll you to your respective communities. In the community, that is whereby you will be accessing all our previous workshops, recording as well as our upcoming workshops. However, colleagues, now we're moving to a RCT management system, which is the system that was launched last month by the RCT unit, whereby now all our services will be offered via the system. The events, workshops, and all other services that we are offering, including the writing consultant. All those services will now be provided via the RCT management system. So if you want assistance with that, registering to our platform, send us an emails as well as to RCT inquiries or supervision calls, and then we will enable or assist you with registration. The services are available on Ulink. So if you log into Ulink and then you go under services, and then the last option is the RCD MS, and then that is whereby you will register your profile and then go forward into accessing or navigating around the system and see what are we offering to our postdoctoral research fellows, academic staff, as well as supervisors and postgraduate students. Without any further delay, colleagues, allow me to welcome our facilitator. We are honored to be joined by Dr. Lorenzo David, who will be facilitating today's workshop. Dr. Lorenzo David is currently a coordinator at the Research Capacity Development Unit at the Postgraduate School, University of Johannesburg. Dr. Lorenzo David was recently awarded a PhD in biochemistry for his assessment of transferring checked gold palladium and gold palladium by bimetallic nanoparticles and their potential for anti-cancer drug delivery at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. By adopting a holistic approach to education, Dr. Lorenzo hopes to inspire students to achieve personal and academic success with a hands-on and learner-centric approach to value-based learning. That was Dr. Lorenzo David. Colleagues, before I move forward or I hand over to Dr. Lorenzo David, just a quick reminder that I'll be sharing a feedback evaluation on the form. We kindly request you to take your 2 minutes and fill that feedback evaluation. That's helping us in terms of reporting and also finding impact that we are making to the postgraduate students, supervisors, and PDRFs. So we value and we appreciate your feedback regarding that. I'll be posting that on the chat throughout the session. And if you do have questions, as I've mentioned earlier, just raise your hand. I will notify Dr. Lorenzo, or just type your question under the chat, and then we will be good to go. Dr. Lorenzo David, I now hand over to you. You can start the workshop. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Nkosi. Just to confirm that you can hear me, if everything's okay, can I get a thumbs up, please?
Yes, Doctor, we can hear you.
Thank you. So good morning, colleagues. I hope you're all well. If you just give me a minute, I will share my presentation and then we can get started with the workshop. Okay. Nkosi, can you just confirm if you're able to see my presentation?
Yes, Doc, I can see your presentation, but it's not yet on presentation mode.
Okay, I'm going to put it in presentation mode now. Okay, perfect. So once again, good morning, colleagues. I hope you're all well. I'd like to thank you for joining us for this session. We hope it's going to be engaging, and we get some feedback from the audience, because I think that it's important for us to look at this topic from all different, not only perspectives, but also based on our experience. And hopefully from that perspective, we all can learn from one another as well. And it will add to the quality of this presentation. So just to quickly go through some of the aims. So by the end of the session, we hope that we will have a deeper understanding of academic integrity and its importance, as well as its evolution. We will hope to examine some of the current challenges that researchers face and provide some practical strategies to maintain integrity in this ever-changing academic environment. Hopefully you leave with some frameworks, or you'll find that the frameworks that we produce are actually useful in terms of ethical decision-making, as well as the knowledge available on some of the resources. So towards the end of this presentation, I will provide some resources where we can go for further reading. And most importantly, we hope to create an ongoing discussion about integrity in our research communities. I feel like this is something that is very important, especially with all of the pressures that is put on academics and students currently from your master's, PhD onwards, I think that by us having a strong foundation in academic integrity, it can only add to the quality of work that is coming out of Africa, and obviously UJ as well. So, as we've mentioned, we would go through some of the historical context as well as the evolution of academic integrity. I feel that it's important for us to understand where we're coming from, to understand where we are presently, to where we're going. We'd like to identify some of the current challenges, explore some practical strategies, develop personal and professional frameworks for ethical decision making. And one of the key points that we will highlight here is that in terms of ethical integrity, what is actually apparent is actually based a lot on character and what we've experienced in our past. So, trying to provide a framework which we can align to can, obviously allow the academic community at large to be more in line with one another and more consistent. And the last thing we've mentioned is that we'd like to identify with some resources and support systems to help us to further our understanding of this important topic. So we generally like to start with a bit of an icebreaker. I do understand that many participants do not like to unmute their mics, but please, I would urge you to feel free to unmute your mic if there's any contribution or question that you may have at any point in the conversation. As much as possible, I would like this to be a discussion where we can learn from one another. So just a question for us to think about before we go into academic integrity. I think it's important for us to identify what are our core values as a researcher. So I'll just put a few examples up there. And now our core values will obviously differ from person to person in terms of what we rank as the top three priorities. Some could be honesty, transparency, academic rigor. Others may actually value collaboration and respect of your lab colleagues or your research group colleagues. So I thought it would be quite interesting for us to go around the room as much as possible for those who would like to share, and for us to speak about what do we value as our core values as an academic researcher. So once again, if you don't feel comfortable to unmute your mic or you're not in a position to do so, please feel free to type a message in the chat box, and Mr. Nkosi will actually assist with sharing those with us. So again here, once we've identified our core values, we can select one personal value which guides our research decisions. How do we practice this value in our daily research work, as well as if you would like to share some challenges you face in upholding this value. So generally, as is the case, I will start with this, and I'll give the audience, members of the audience, an opportunity to join in either in the chat or by unmuting your mic. So if I look at it from my perspective, one of the core values that I would recommend or that I would identify with as a researcher would be honesty and transparency. Let's work with two. The reason for that, when I say honesty and transparency, I'm talking about honesty and transparency in my work. And this is something that I think which is important for us to understand is, if I look at the journey coming from master's to PhD, we understand that in your master's, you don't necessarily have to, bring something new or identify something new in the field. So generally what you're doing is that you are testing methods which have been proven, and obviously you're trying to develop a good project. So generally, the challenges that you face in a master's, not always, but generally, would be much less than what you'd face in a PhD. However, that transition from master's to PhD, we notice that no one really tells you that when you come into your PhD and you're trying something new for the first time, you will face failures. And I think that is something that actually was one of the biggest challenge that I had, in terms of I would follow a protocol exactly as the paper laid out, but I would not get the end result. And at the beginning of my journey, my professor would ask me, how's it going? I'll just be like, no, it's going okay. We're getting some good results in terms of getting the synthesis done, but actually I was struggling. So I think that creating an environment where, we are able to share that, this is actually not working, and letting students know and letting our fellow colleagues know that, it's okay if an experiment doesn't work out, even if it's a bad result, at the end of the day, it is a result. And if we have a result, we have learned something new and be able to explain it, obviously, in the context of our research. So I would say, if I have to highlight between them, transparency. And the reason that I say this is because I remember when my first couple of weeks in the lab after I started my PhD, and I'm trying this. For the past couple of weeks before that, I actually been researching and I found these fantastic papers and I was excited. I'm like, you know what, this is going to go so well because I have every protocol that I need. And then I go into the testing phase or the synthesis phase and I realize nothing is working. And this is not because the papers are incorrect or the data or the protocol is not incorrect, but rather that key steps have been actually omitted from these papers. And without these key steps, we actually can't replicate the experiment. So in terms of that, I would say that transparency is actually one of the personal values that guide my research decisions. When I write papers moving forward, I like to include as much detail in the synthesis portion as possible because I want my work to be able to be replicated. I don't want someone else to go through the same issues that I or similar researchers had to go through in order to optimize that method. Because when we think about it, the point of research is not just for us to publish a paper and for it to sit on the shelf, but it's essentially for us to contribute knowledge to the rest of the academic community so we can advance together. Just like our research is based on the work of previous people, hopefully one day new advances in science and technology and other areas of research as well will be advanced from the research that we have as well. So sorry for that long monologue there. But if there's anyone that would like to contribute in terms of some of your experiences and challenges you've had, please feel free. I'll leave this up for a few more seconds, and if no one wants to contribute, then I will move on to the next slide, which deals with the history and evolution of academic integrity. Okay, so I see that no one is unmuting the mic, so we'll move on. So in terms of the history and evolution of academic integrity, I think it's important for us to begin with defining what academic integrity is. So if we break it down, academic integrity is essentially a moral code or an ethical policy which is present within academia. So we understand that we are in the unique position where we have, in many cases, the freedom to research the topics that we want to. And often with this freedom also comes a responsibility for us to report the correct results. So in terms of academic integrity, this term in particular gained prominence through the work of Professor Donald McCabe, who was a professor at Rutgers University in New Jersey. And he is often considered the grandfather of academic integrity. So when we look at its core, academic integrity essentially supports educational values, and this is through behaviors such as avoiding cheating, avoiding plagiarism, as well as contributing while maintaining high academic standards and ensuring that honesty as well as academic rigor in research and publishing is maintained at all costs. So essentially, we all understand what academic integrity should entail. We understand that we should not falsify results. We should report all of our results, even if it's negative, because hopefully, even possibly, we'll be able to help someone else understand that this does not work or this works. We understand that in terms of plagiarism, we should not do this. So academic integrity is not something that is new to any of us who's in this, who's in the audience today. But I think it's good for us to put into context and to have a clear definition that we all can refer to moving forward. So when we look specifically for researchers, academic integrity means conducting and reporting our research honestly, accurately, efficiently, as well as objectively. And we'll see later on how this actually plays into how society actually views academic research, because if we look back to a common example, which would be the COVID pandemic, which happened a few years ago, we would have seen online that there were essentially two camps of people who actually formed. Those who actually believed that, you know what, the medication would work, and those, or the vaccines would work, and those who decided that, you know what, there's actually something that is not right that's actually going on here. And where does this stem from? It stems from a lack of trust in academic integrity for pharmaceutical companies, for research institutions. So I think that we are in the unique position currently to actually make changes in our own practices, which hopefully would be able to change this narrative of mistrust in academic institutions by the wider public. Because at the end of the day, we want our research to be able to positively impact people out in the real world. We're not performing these studies just for us to get a piece of paper and to get up on that stage to graduate. We're doing it because we want to make a difference in the lives of people around us. So by us making the changes in terms of academic integrity and aligning ourselves to particular frameworks, I think that we can actually start to change the culture in academia, or rather the perceived culture in academia, hopefully allowing research to be welcomed much more easily. So if we continue to go through some of the history and evolution of academic integrity, we'll go all the way back to the late 18th century. And at this period, it was actually tied to the academic honor code in US institutions. So if we look at this, the academic honor code was actually focused on duty, pride, and power, and self-esteem, and was essentially tied to character, or character of the person who is undertaking the research. So what we understand then is, in the 18th century, if you were a researcher, your work reflected your character as a person. So if you were dishonest in your research, then that automatically translated to you being dishonest as a person, and therefore you would not be accepted, shall we say, as well in society. So as we move on towards the late 19th century, we'll see that the shift as university goals evolved, and now we move on to the 20th century, where there was further research in terms of cheating, deception, as well as moral development. So if we focus particularly on the 20th century, we saw that significant research going on, as we said, cheating, moral development, with scholars. There's two that actually have we've identified here, which is Hawthorne and May, discovered that cheating is influenced not just by our psychological factors, but also by social environments. And finding later would influence basically McCabe's research on developing the honor codes and integrity culture. So I understand that this is quite a bit of background that we're going through, but we are going to go into some practical strategies in terms of how we can align ourselves to better frameworks for integrity. So now that we understand where we're coming from, let's have a look at what our current understanding of academic integrity involves. So we understand that.
Sorry, Dr. Lorenzo.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I just want to find out if it's my network or not, but I'm still stuck on the first slide. So I want to know with the audience if they are able to see your presentation.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
The slide is not moving at all.
It's not moving at all.
Can you?
Just the first one, building trust and credibility in research. That's just the title page.
Is it changing now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, let me stop sharing. See if I can do this. And then I will try resharing. Maybe there's some setting that I need to change up here. Okay, are we able to see the screen now, Nkosi?
Yeah.
Yes, we can see the screen. Can you put it in presentation mode, please?
Okay, it's in presentation mode.
Not yet.
Not in presentation mode as yet. Let me just
Yeah.
see. Uh, Let me just see what could be happening here. You're able to see now, Ngozi?
Not yet.
Ngozi, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. It's not actually showing the presentation. I actually had to log in through the online team, so I don't know if that's actually causing an issue with the presentation. Let me see if I can do something.
Yeah.
If not, then I will just try and share individual slides as we move through it. Let's just see here. So we were. One minute. Sorry about that. Okay, Kosi, so I made some changes. Just can you let me know if you're able to see it now? Contemporary understanding of academic integrity.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
I can
We're on that
see that
page.
Okay.
slide.
Yes,
Is it
we can.
changing?
Yeah.
Has it changed to current challenges to academic integrity?
Not
Contemporary
yet.
understanding.
Not yet. Okay. So it looks like I'm going to have to share individual screens, but it's fine. We'll go through it that way, just so everyone understands what we're talking about. Okay. So once again, apologies for that, colleagues. We can, now that everyone can see a contemporary understanding of academic integrity, let's try and unpack this hopefully a bit more. So as we understand that in previous centuries, academic integrity was linked to an individual's character or linked to an individual themselves. And now we understand that in terms of academic integrity, it is moving beyond individuals and looks to be more of a systemic approach. Okay. If we look at contemporary perspectives, basically this emphasizes a shared responsibility among all of the stakeholders in an academic community. And this actually poses the question, and there was an interesting workshop that I attended recently where one of the supervisors actually brought, and they were discussing, they say that, you know, we currently have, or as a supervisor, you are required to have a certain number, you're advised to have a certain number of students, and there's certain targets that you need to meet. And as much as you can have meetings with your students and you can, invest the time, invest the effort in them, at the end of the day, when the student is doing the writing, they actually are doing it on their own. And if you look at the average paper, let's just say the average paper has 60, or the average chapter will have 60 to 100 references. It goes on to say that, is it now the supervisor's responsibility to go through each of those references to double check that the student has actually referenced correctly, that there is no plagiarism going on in terms of just adding references for the sake of adding it? So I think the current understanding of academic integrity, while it is good that, there's a shared responsibility, I think with that, there's some stuff that we should actually be cautious about, because if we are supervising students and let's just say the student is under a tight deadline and they did something they're not supposed to do, and they get caught out for plagiarism or the use of AI in writing their thesis, whatever it may be, how does that reflect on us as a supervisor? And I think that's something that we actually need to think about, and hopefully bring about some policy changes, or rather bring about some conversations in terms of how will this actually affect the supervisor, how will this affect the research group, because we understand that in terms of if there is question surrounding the integrity of a research group, this can have major effects not only on the student who actually committed the offense, but it can also have an effect on other students graduating from the same lab. It can have an effect on the supervisor themselves, and it can also have an effect on the ability of that research group to actually acquire funding from the university or even from external funders as well. So as we're saying, in terms of the current understanding of academic integrity, it is founded on multiple stakeholder responsibility, that being from the student to the supervisor, the department, the university. And basically, there's a shared responsibility between all of us. So if we look at it now, academic integrity is now viewed as an ongoing commitment that requires continuous attention and improvement rather than a static set of rules. And what does this mean? It means that essentially, when someone comes to master's or PhD level, they've already quite far into their academic journey, or as a student rather, for us to bring about these changes and be like, once you reach master's, once you reach PhD, you actually need to align to these set of rules in terms of academic integrity. So the point we're trying to make here is that academic integrity should be instilled in all students from a younger age, shall we say, from undergraduate level, because at that point they are still willing to accept new approaches, shall we say, of conducting research, because they don't have a reference point to fall back on. So as with many things, we notice that when policies are made, they are often made to target, let's just say, PhD students, where, shall we say, there is a list of attributes that PhD students should have by the time that they graduate. However, the question arises, once we come to the stage of a PhD, are we not already ingrained in our practices and how we go about conducting our research? Because we have been working independently for at least, say, 3 to 4 years. So the solution to this would be if we can sort of intercept undergraduate students and hold courses in terms of academic integrity and integrity as a whole in academia in their undergraduate levels. And by that doing, we plant the seeds early on and we create this culture where we understand this is actually the norm, this is actually what we're striving towards. And hopefully we can bring about, changing the culture or how it's seen currently. So the current understanding of academic integrity basically will recognize cultural and contextual variations. What does this mean? So when we're talking about academic integrity, we're talking about a list of rules and guidelines which has been approved and which we all need to align to. However, we also need to understand that what is acceptable in one culture in terms of integrity may not be acceptable in another. Not to say that, for example, plagiarism will be acceptable in one culture versus another, but we have to look at it in terms of context. And therefore, that is why it is important for us to have a framework which we can all align to. And there are frameworks out there, but we just need to make ourselves aware of it and ensure that we are actually aligning ourselves to that, and that we're not bringing in our own interpretation of the law, shall we say, in terms of academic integrity. And once again, it says it involves ongoing commitment to improvement. We understand that just like with any higher degree, it is not just the destination, it's actually the journey that matters the most. So as we go through this, we will identify areas which we can improve on, and then we will continue to do that. And it'll be a continuing learning process, as it is with many things in life, shall we say. So this is gonna take a bit of time, but I'll have to do this.
Yes, Doc. While you are still on that, there's a hand raised by Dr. Beauty. Dr. Beauty, you can unmute your mic and ask your question or make your contribution.
Yeah, morning, everyone. So what I want to know is, does UJ have AI tools, AI checking tools, just like we have with the Turnitin? Because if we want to install this academic integrity from undergraduate, Don't we
Yeah.
have those tools whereby the student will see that, okay, if I have copied my whole essay from AI, then I will
Mhm.
be, red flagged to show that this is not my
Yeah.
work, even though
Yeah.
there is that integration of using AI and referencing AI. But I mean, as we are pushing the culture of academic integrity, don't
Mhm.
we have those tools like turn it in, maybe AI tool that can check or scan to check
Mhm.
if the students are complying, even if we are
Yeah.
not coming with a punishable, we are not trying to punish them, but for them
Mhm.
to learn that if you use this
Yeah.
style of writing, you will suffer the consequences in future,
Mm.
or maybe try to prevent their future work so that they can
Yeah.
do a work that is ethical.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that, Dr. Beauty. That is a very interesting question. So I'll address that before we move on to the rest of the presentation. I believe that students of UJ actually have access to Grammarly. Mr. Nkosi and maybe other members of the audience can maybe confirm this. And we'll notice that in the online version of Grammarly, there is actually a AI and plagiarism detector tool that is present there. So because we are, we'll say, staff and students of UJ, we have access to Grammarly, and Grammarly actually does have, in its paid version, AI detectors, which will pick up portions of text which are actually generated by AI completely. In addition to that, there are also free tools that are available. I know like Chat GPT Zero is one of them, Bypass is another. And I think that there are various tools which actually are available for students to actually check, you know what, if I submit this, is my work going to be picked up as being plagiarized? But I think that our approach actually needs to go deeper than that. Like we were saying, we need to explain to the students the dangers of them using AI without them having the foundational knowledge of their area. And I think this is something that is very important. There's a clear difference between some groups of people, and we will discuss this in a future presentation later in the month, uh, dealing with generative AI and its impact on research specifically. But we can simplify it down to this. There are essentially three types. We can break people into three types, or groups of expertise, rather. We have those who are experts in AI, but they lack the domain knowledge. We'll have the second group who will have a high domain knowledge. Let's just say maybe some very well-established researchers, but they may not have a lot of experience with AI. And then we have the rare breed, which is actually a combination of the two, where an individual will have a high domain knowledge as well as a high knowledge of AI as well. So the point of, I attended a conference recently, and this was one of the points that was brought up. It's that if you give your supervisor or your professor, and they go onto ChatGPT or Perplexity or Site or whatever it may be, and they actually say, generate me a paper or generate me an outline of a paper based on the following topic. Because they have the background knowledge, they are actually able to identify what is correct and what is not correct. So therefore, in that case, it's just used as a tool to gather information. It's not being used to generate, obviously, they're not going to copy and paste that. But if you take that into a student, we'll notice that the student may just copy and paste and reword whatever they see, often without realizing that, you know what, I actually have to fact check this against Google Scholar, PubMed, whatever it may be, to verify the results. So I think there needs to be a culture shift. The fact is that AI is not going anywhere. You know, we have to admit that it is going to become part of the academic environment. And therefore, we need to identify what is our approach. Do we want to be reactive? Do we want to just use or see AI as a threat to our assessments? Or do we want to teach students how to effectively use it as a tool to improve their efficiency, while still investing the same amount of time into studying and trying to get that domain knowledge, what we all require? So I hope that answers your question, Dr. Beauty. Sorry it went on for a while, but yeah, I hope that answers your question. I see, okay, there's two
Thanks,
hands up.
Doc, for that. There is a hand by Dr. Salam. Dr. Salam, you can unmute your mic and go ahead. Dr. Salam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues. I want to add to what Dr. just said. Yeah, you will know that education values and academic integrity go hand in hand. They both shape the kind of scholar and citizen a learner becomes. And education is not just about acquiring knowledge, it's about developing character, ethics, and lifelong habits of learning. So going into academic integrity and use of AI, we can see that academic integrity and AI like Grammarly, Turnitin, and other becomes more integrated into research and academic writing because they bring both opportunities and ethical concerns. And also the use of AI in academia must be guided by a commitment to academic integrity by ensuring transparency and honesty and fairness in all the scholarly work, as the facilitator have said. Just in addition, and there are some challenges and risks to academic integrity, like plagiarism and mispresentation of this AI generated. And also, there are some best practices by using this AI ethically in academia, which is transparency, as the facilitator have said, by disclosing the use of AI by writing or in research process. Thank you. That is what I just want to add.
Thank you, Dr. Salami. You make some very good points. And I think that, again, it seems to be, the theme that's running in the conversation so far, that in terms of AI, but also using it as a tool, but not losing the essence of what a scholar is. And I think that's something that is very important, because if we look back, if many of us look back to our journeys, some of us, will be much more experienced than others. As I said, I've just recently graduated with my PhD, and some people have much more experience. But if I look at my journey, I identify that the struggles that I faced during my studies actually allowed me to grow. Now, is this going to be the case for students of the future, in terms of if they are struggling with a particular protocol or a synthesis, or how to approach this research question, or even to apply for funding? There's been cases where AI has been picked up in terms of people applying for funding grants. So how does that develop us as students? And are we going to lose the essence of a student, is what I'm essentially saying. But I'm going to try and play a devil's advocate here and look at it from the opposite view as well. Let's just take Grammarly for an example. So we understand that many journals, or many international journals, actually publish in English. So that's their standard language of publishing. So I'd like to put a question out to the audience and just get your feedback on this. Let's just say we have a researcher who is fantastic. They publish well in terms of their research is sound. It is solid foundations, good citations, reproducibility. They have everything they need to excel in the academic environment. However, there's a limitation in that English is not their first language, and they want to actually publish in a journal that is primarily English. So unfortunately, they don't have the funds to, get in like a copy editor or a translator. So they want to use Grammarly to this effect to basically work on their grammar, sentence construction, and ensure that the ideas flow correctly. Would this be seen as being academically unethical, or will this be seen as being rather taking a negative effect on the integrity of the researcher? I'd just like to get the feedback from anyone in the audience, please, if anyone would like to share.
Yes, I would like to share that AI in academia is not inherently a threat to integrity, but misuse of it. When AI is used responsibly, AI can be a powerful in pursuit of knowledge. And the key lies in balancing innovation and ethical responsibility. And this can be ensured that academic work remains a true reflection of individual effort and scholar rigor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I think the point of me bringing up, because it was brought up in a workshop that we attended recently, was that the way that the way that universities, let me just say, the way that many universities and research institutions actually view AI currently is that it is a threat to basically academic integrity. It is a threat to, let's just say, assessments or whatever else it may be. But I think AI has its place, and it has its place in advancing research. And like Dr. Slami has said, if used ethically, it is a powerful tool in terms of literature review, in terms of, maybe looking at a problem from a different perspective, brainstorming ideas. It is a very powerful tool, but I think that the responsibility relies on us as, supervisors, future supervisors, academics, that we actually instill these values and share this knowledge with as many of the younger generations and those who are currently pursuing their studies as possible, to be like, yes, you know what, this is a powerful tool, but this is the framework in which you need to actually operate within, so that you still get the best and you absorb the best qualities of being a scholar at a university as well. So yeah, so I'm just gonna share my screen. I apologize, I'm gonna have to share it individually, but let's just see how this works out. So there we go.
Well, thank you, Doc, for that. Just to add on that one, with the question posed by Dr. Beauty earlier, we had a workshop last month whereby we had a representative from CAT, Mr. Melvin. He did mention that UJ currently doesn't have a system or a platform like Turnitin that detects AI. However, supervisors, they are using third-party platforms whereby they do that on their own. But the CAT unit, they are working on bringing in a system that will work like Turnitin. So to answer Dr. Beauty's question earlier. And
thank you,
to mention
Kosi.
that we do also have a workshop on AI, also from a representative from CARE, Dr. Low, on Friday, who will be telling us more about it and how supervisors and PDRF can navigate around that case. So he will be telling us on the CAT side on how supervisors can navigate around that. So please join that workshop on Friday. And yeah, as I've mentioned, UJ doesn't have an AI tool at the moment, but they are working on it.
Okay, thank you, Nkosi. So when they say they work in it, are they developing a tool specifically for that we're going to be using, or are they looking at getting the license for one of the external detectors? Did he go into any detail?
I think they are looking at maybe acquiring the license and yeah, integrating it with the one that we are using, probably with our platforms here at UJ. So that's my thinking on that. Colleagues, you can correct me if I'm wrong with that. So yeah.
Thank you, Nkosi. Thank you for that input. Okay, so hopefully you guys or the audience can see the next slide, which is actually technology and AI challenges. And I think we've actually discussed most of these already. We understand that AI tools basically are creating a new area for academic misconduct. And we understand that as AI gets increasingly more sophisticated and people get better at using it, it is becoming even more difficult for us to detect content that is generated by AI. There is a disclaimer that many of the AI detectors actually put out there, and they say that no AI detector is actually 100% foolproof, meaning that they can give you a likelihood of the work being picked up or being picked up as AI generated, but they are not, they're saying that you should not use this as a measure to actually punish a student for this. And these are some of the disclaimers that they have. The reason why I wanted to include this here was that, so I wanted to test one of the detectors out, and this was a couple of weeks ago. So what I did was I wrote out a short piece of text. I basically used AI and I copied and pasted half of it. And then the other half, I actually wrote off my own knowledge, but I tried to keep the tone as formal as possible, rather aligning with academic writing. And what I actually saw was that it actually picked up the entire document as being AI generated, which was quite surprising for me because you could see there was a clear difference between them. So what they actually suggest is that when we are using AI detectors and when we are using any AI models, you actually should use multiple of them. So we'll see there's many free detectors which are out there. Use many as possible if you want to get a clearer idea, because some will say that this content is completely human written, while another will say that it's 30% AI generated, another may say it's 80% AI generated. So in a situation like that, what do we actually trust? Is unfortunately. So we're just going to have to wait until these detectors become more advanced and hopefully be able to pick up AI generated content with greater certainty, shall we say. So like we've mentioned, this causes issues for institutions in terms of how do they pick up what is AI detected versus not. And even if they do pick up a document that is, let's just say 80% generated by AI, there is always a possibility of the individual who's being accused to actually challenge this by saying that, you know what, these detectors are not 100% are not 100% accurate as well. So there's a lot of discussion and a lot of, I think, policies which need to be put in place to kind of remove the gray areas which surround AI. So as they go on to say here, when the students are using AI, there's blurred lines between assistance versus misconduct. So I was listening to a talk today about the use of AI in university. And basically the definition that they came up with was that if it is being used to allow you to improve your writing, that would be morally acceptable. But if you're using it to generate new ideas, then that would be something that they actually frown upon. And this was one of the universities, I think, in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. So I think as we go through this period and AI becomes more and more integrated into universities, you'll see that more policies are actually going to be coming through from them. So okay, so we're going to go through. Nkosi, can you see publication pressure and research integrity?
Yes, Doc, I can see it.
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so I want to look at it from this perspective. Like when it comes to research integrity, we understand what we need to do. However, sometimes, you know, in circumstances, we may feel pressure being put on us due to publish maybe 5 papers a year or 10 papers a year or whatever else it may be. And what is that effect on research integrity of the average person, shall we say? So we understand that, you know, we are in a university and we understand the culture of publish or perish. And this is, in my own personal opinion, this is something which creates the potential for integrity risks. Reason being, you know, we had a panel discussion, I think it was almost a month ago now, or like just under a month, where we had some emeritus professors and senior professors, and we just were, you know, trying to unpack their academic journey and what was the environment like 40 years ago versus what is the environment like today. And one of the emeritus professors, Professor Mario Ariati, he actually said that, you know, when he was conducting his research, there was not this pressure to actually publish as many papers. He would rather publish a few times a year, but really aim for these high impact factor journals. So the way that academia is moving currently is obviously we need to publish in order for the university to receive funding and obviously for ranking purposes, etc. But I think it does create an issue surrounding integrity risks, especially if certain people feel that they are under severe pressure. So there should be policies in place and there should be some steps taken to actually limit this and assist researchers. And this is just my own private opinion rather. Okay, we've noticed that with this publish or perish culture, there's been increasing number of retractions in academic publishing, and that never looks good on an academic researcher as well for you to retract a paper. So as much as we want to publish, there's also the negative of that in that, you know, retractions due to there's something not right with the results. So we also understand that there's a pressure for novel, positive, and significant results. And this obviously is that we want to publish as many papers as possible in as many high impact factor journals as possible as well. And this can actually have an impact on our research design, analysis, and reporting. So the last point would like to note here is that when it comes to publication pressure, it actually leads into the competitive nature, competitive environment of funding. And this all adds pressure. So if we look at it, the researcher of today has to balance, you know, many different aspects, and it is quite a task to be, shall we say, an academic in today's environment. But there are tools, there is help out there to help, especially those of us who are emerging academics, to basically get up to standard and to, you know, meet the expectations of the academic community. So, Nkosi, are you able to see the discussion point? No.
Not yet.
Okay, let me just stop sharing and share again. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my screen, and I just had a discussion point up here if anyone would like to contribute to that. And the discussion point was, what integrity challenges do you or have you faced in your specific discipline? And how do those challenges differ across career stages, shall we say, from honors to masters to PhD? And are there any strategies that you found effective in addressing these challenges? So I'll leave that up. I don't want to just keep talking, not giving members a chance to actually the audience a chance to respond. So if anyone would like to respond, please feel free. If there's anything, others, we can always come back to this later on as well. Okay, if no one has anything to add to this. Okay. Okay, so maybe it's just something for us to actually think about. What sort of integrity challenges have we faced in our disciplines? How do these differ across career stages, and what strategies have we found to be effective in addressing these challenges? So I'm going to try and go through. Are you able to see the screen now? Go see, so I'm going to keep asking you this as we move through slides. Why trust and credibility matter?
Yes, we can see your screen top.
Okay, so I'm going to try and move through the next couple of slides quite quickly, because all of us should have an understanding of this. So if we have to unpack why trust and credibility matter, it boils down to a few points. Number one is going to be trust and credibility is actually the foundation of scientific progress and the advancement of knowledge, meaning that if we go and read a paper that has been peer reviewed, we expect to be able to replicate the results if we are using the same reaction conditions, shall we say. So if we are not able to replicate the result, then this actually affects the credibility of the paper. And if this continues in every journal, in every journal that we actually encounter, then how is knowledge going to be advanced if we are unable to replicate experiments? You know, and this may be actual lab experiments, or it may be social experiments, or it may be, you know, some sort of research of any kind. If it cannot be replicated, then what is what is the aim? How are we going to use this to actually advance our knowledge? The next point is that it is actually essential for successful relationships with colleagues and stakeholders. If we are credible in our papers, in our research, if it can be reproduced, that builds on relationships with colleagues and obviously improves collaboration. At the same time, if we are credible in research, there's a higher chance of us actually receiving funding to continue this, which we are very passionate about. The next point is going to be credibility actually leads to increased recognition, collaboration, and funding opportunities. We've discussed that. And we understand that it protects institutional as well as the field reputation. And this is something that we all understand, is that even though we work individually, as academics, we do represent our research groups and we do represent the University of Johannesburg at large. And therefore, by us remaining credible in our research, we actually portray that of our research groups in the university as well. So there is a responsibility which is placed on our shoulders to be credible and to align ourselves with these frameworks. And the last one is going to be maintains public trust in academic research. And this feeds into, once again, the whole issue surrounding COVID, where we had the non-vaxxers versus the vax, or rather non-vaxxers and the vaxxers. And essentially, when we break it down, this stemmed from a mistrust in research, and it stemmed from a mistrust in the pharmaceutical companies, who many people thought were just trying to make money. So unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever be able to eradicate this in terms of this mistrust in academic research, but we can make the change that we hopefully want to see out there. And obviously, as we do that, we start to change the culture as well. So let's go through some of the key components. I'm on the next slide now. Key components of researcher credibility. In order for us to remain credible, we basically have, in our methods, in our experiments, we need to have we need to be clear in the steps that we're using. We need to be comprehensive. We need to exhaust every avenue, rather, to test a particular hypothesis. And we need to be transparent about our results. If something has worked, we should report it. If something has not worked, we should actually make a note of it. And when needed, we can always bring that up as a point of discussion, as well as proof. We obviously, another key component of researcher credibility is honest reporting of our results, and this includes our negative findings. Proper attribution and citation practices, meaning that if we have read about an idea somewhere, we should obviously reference the particular paper, because we would not like that if someone did that to us. There's also responsible data management and accessibility, meaning that how we store our data for, let's just say we publish a paper, and there is someone that actually they questions the validity of our results, by us actually responsibly storing our data and allowing or giving accessibility within reason to certain individuals, and therefore that builds credibility. And when it comes to different types of research where we're dealing with human subjects or animal subjects, the ethical treatment of these research participants is actually very important. And very importantly, for us to disclose our conflicts of interest. And I think we will discuss that a bit later on as well. So I'm going to try and not be too long. I like to try and keep the presentations short. So let's see how we go through this. In terms of transparent research practices, how do we develop, how do we sort of mold our actual current research practices? Number one is going to be open materials and methods, and this is something we've discussed in the presentation previously, where your paper should be the results should be reproducible if they follow the exact steps that you've taken. Then we've got pre-registration studies, and this is where appropriate, meaning that before you actually start with the research proposal, your research study, you actually put a proposal together, and that goes for review. And obviously, we understand that this is done at many universities across the world. Sharing of data and code. This one is a bit of I wouldn't say a gray area, but this is something we need to be cautious about, because if your research is actually being used to develop a patent, then obviously you don't want to share your data. But if there are certain key findings that people would like more information on, you should be able to provide them or direct them in a particular area. Comprehensive reporting of our procedures. So obviously, in our research practices, every step that we're using, acknowledgement of limitations of our research, meaning that this study has proved that, you know what, gold nanoparticles has the ability to cure cancer within an in vitro or cell environment, shall we say. We're not going to say that because it worked on cells that it can actually work on people, just to kind of put that into context. And I think something that is also very important is how we respond constructively to critique. And when we think about it, when we receive critique from our supervisors or maybe from a peer, there's two ways we can look at it. Number one is being an attack on us, or number two, we can actually look at it as being a dialogue. And I think that is something, a dialogue where we actually are, someone is pointing something else, something out to us from a different perspective that we can actually use to improve our research and increase our skill set. Because we need to remember that everyone's perspective is actually different, and therefore we can always learn from one another. So in terms of research, misconduct, and integrity issues, we'd like to firstly define what research misconduct is. So the first one will be fabrication. That's going to be making up of our data or our results. And there was, I'll just spend a minute going through the example. At this workshop recently, they were talking about the use of generative AI in research, and there was a case study. I'll try and put that case study up into the slides before I upload it, where AI was, or generative AI was actually used to create clinical data. And this clinical data was then used to support the claim that a particular drug had actually worked. And remember, this was at the later stage of where it was actually being tested on, it was about to be tested on humans, if I'm not mistaken. And what had happened was that eventually when people actually went through the data, they actually picked up that it was generated, there were inconsistencies, and it was actually, there's a high likelihood of it being generated by AI. And when they actually tested it, they saw that, you know what, this was actually completely generated by AI. And the scary thing is that this was done by a research group that was actually relatively well known, or rather, it's not some underground research lab. So it's actually quite scary to think that once again we're breaking in AI, but in terms of fabrication, that with a click of a button you can create a whole data series for your experiment to support your claims. Falsification, and this basically involves when we manipulate materials, processes, or changing or omitting data. And I think two examples they spoke here would be p hacking, where even if you get a positive result, but your p value is not where it needs to be in terms of level of significance, people can adjust and play with their triplicate values to get the correct p value. Again, plagiarism, we understand, is a form of research misconduct. We've got other questionable research practices, which could be in terms of your synthesis process, or omitting certain areas, not saying that you had help from another research group, whatever it may be. And we understand that the consequences of this can be on your professional capacity, as well as affect the institution. And if your research is actually being used on people, it will have a direct effect on society as well. So when it comes to conflicts of interest in research, this is something that always needs to be disclosed in any paper that we write, and many of us would be aware of this. So financial conflicts of interest, and this will be who was your funding sources and any personal investments. We'll notice with many of the papers that come out in terms of new drugs, if you look at the acknowledgement sections or the conflicts of interest, they'll actually say this research was actually funded by Merck, or it was funded by Pfizer, or it was funded by Janssen & Janssen, whatever it may be. So every research group will need to obviously mention any financial conflicts of interest so that the results remain valid. Any non-financial conflicts, and this could be any in terms of intellectual, personal, or political issues. Then we go on to institutional conflicts and dual loyalties. If a postdoc actually did research at University A, but now they're a postdoc at University B, and they want to publish the work from University A, as a simple example, that will be an institutional conflict. Who is the original work attributed to, And that is something that can actually cause a conflict of interest in research and even cause papers to be retracted later on if they were published without the university's, the previous university's knowledge. So conflicts of interest can actually have an impact on research design, conduct, and reporting. Put it into context, if there are unethical research groups out there and they are getting 100 million euros to actually perform the study, they obviously want to, certain research groups, the majority of research groups, I should say, would just report on the results which are actually being produced. However, there will always be a small population of unethical organizations or people where the research design may be impacted, to actually provide, to basically give the best result possible. And then we also have proper disclosure and management strategies that we can actually speak about too, in that if there is conflicts of interest, what is the approved protocol for you to actually go about disclosing this. So we're going to go on to institutional responsibilities. It is on the institution to actually create a culture that values and promotes integrity. And we notice that many universities are actually implementing this. They're coming down quite hard on this, obviously, because they don't want reputational harm. And they also want to ensure the research being conducted within their walls actually is solid as well. So they achieve this through developing clear policies and procedures, and by providing education and training, which many of us would be exposed to the HCM trainings that the university offers as well. So this is a good place for us to actually go and expand our skill set and understand what is currently happening out there, what are things we need to be aware of as well. So we can go through a couple of the other points as well, where in terms of institutional responsibilities, many universities, they establish a fair investigation process. If there are issues of misconduct that comes up, there is frameworks they need to align to, supporting whistleblowers and demonstrating accountability at all leadership levels as well. So we've spoken about the individual responsibilities. Now we'll go on to the researcher responsibilities. It is on us, if we are researchers, to stay informed about what are the integrity standards and requirements, because sometimes these may change. And this means essentially that we need to be kept aware of the current developments within our field. Obviously, if we're coming in as emerging academics, it is on us to seek training and mentorship from those who are more senior than us. We also need to create transparent research workflows so that obviously, once again, our research can be reproducible, maintain or get into the habit of maintaining comprehensive documentation. So even 5 years or 10 years down the line, if a particular paper is questioned, we can back it up and prove that, everything was done correctly. We also need to speak up about concerns and contribute to a culture of integrity. Now, we can't go about changing the world, and I think all of us would understand that, but what we can do is change our own behaviors. And I think that's something that if each of us works towards that, that's something that will eventually lead to the culture itself actually changing. So another discussion point that I would have put in here, but even when you go through the slides, or if you go to the slides again, this is something that you can maybe ponder on, would be what institutional support would help you maintain integrity in your research, as well as what gaps exist between what policies actually put through versus the practice in research integrity. And the last one is how is someone speaking?
No, Doc, I think someone's mic is on. I don't know if, okay, let me just find that person and mute. Colleagues, please make sure that your mic is muted and there is no background noise coming from your side. Unless you do have a question, just raise a hand and then I will notify our facilitator that someone has a question. Thank you. You can go ahead, Doc. Sorry for that.
Okay. Thank you, Nkosi. Okay, so I can just come out from here. So I think the part that's actually the key of this presentation would be what are some of the practical strategies for us maintaining research integrity. And I'm going to move on to this slide, which says documentation and data management. So this is the first approach on how one of the practical strategies we can maintain research integrity. I'm just going to put this slide into slide view for now. So we see the 3 points that come up on the screen. The first one is that we must implement a proper data management plan, maintain detailed research notebooks or logs. All of us will have a logbook for those who have, work in the lab, and use version control for analysis of manuscript. So I think these are 3 things that many of us would do already, but I think it's important for us to understand that it does not stop when we are just students, but should continue throughout our research journey. I think it's also some practical tips would be to establish a clear file naming and organization systems. I was speaking to a professor, I think it was a couple of months ago, and they said something I was not aware of. They're like, an academic should actually keep all of the assessments or copies of the assessments of the students that have gone through their classes for at least the last 10 years. And that includes tests, exams, assignments, activities, whatever it may be. Reason being is that if you ever need to be audited, you have proof to actually put through in that audit as well. So I thought that was something interesting just to mention in that for the way we store our data. Then we've also got implement quality control procedures and plan for long-term data preservation. And this could include saving it to the cloud, saving it to a hard drive, printing out hard copies, whatever it may be, because we understand that sometimes things happen in life and, data can be lost very easily. So in terms of collaboration and authorship, how do we maintain research integrity? Number one is that we need to establish clear expectations at the project outset, especially when it comes to writing a paper or collaboration on a particular project. Who is taking lead? Who is going to be first author? Who is going to get acknowledged? And obviously, in terms of authorship, there are authorship guidelines which need to be met in order for a contributor to be considered an author. And if you are going to be considered an author, you essentially need to be involved in every stage of the project, meaning from conceptualization to design to basically running of your experiments or collecting of your results, analysis of the results, and writing of your papers. There's 5 areas that you need to be involved in order to be considered an author. And we notice very often that, rather, let me say, there have been cases where friends have been added onto a paper so that each of you get a publication. But I think something for us to be aware of as well is in terms of the units. If you publish as a first author, you will get 1 unit. But if there are 2 first authors on a paper, as far as I'm aware, that unit will be split between you. And obviously those units are actually very important in terms of other academic administrative, shall we say, tasks and applications as well. So the next one would be to document authorship criteria and contributions. It's always important for you to have a document in which you outline what is the roles and responsibilities of each of the members who are contributing to this paper. Send it in an email so at least you have written proof and there's no he said, rather word of mouth or people saying he said this or he said that. It's important for us to address conflicts promptly and constructively, never leave things to, obviously, as with anything in life, try to address it as soon as possible, and generally it will result in the issue being resolved much quicker. It's important for us to maintain open communication throughout the project, obviously when we're collaborating, and respect disciplinary differences, especially when there's a multidisciplinary team. So respect for one another, and this doesn't come down so much to research integrity, but also just integrity as a person, that we should demonstrate respect for one another. And while different disciplines actually approach a problem from different areas, there's always something we can learn from one another. The last one would be to create a transparent decision-making process. And then I think we've actually spoken quite extensively on this. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. We've mentioned about the developing policies for appropriate AI use in research. We have mentioned about maintaining transparency about AI assistance, and we see some of the AI tools now actually allow you to cite AI as being a source. And obviously preserving human oversight and verification. As powerful as AI is, it is not foolproof. And currently, as it stands, the human mind, or rather human input, is still more valuable than anything that we can, than any AI tool out there. So let's not limit our own input onto a particular situation. It's important for us to stay informed about the emerging AI capabilities and limitations. And I do think that UG is actually, like Mr. Nkosi said, we're running a workshop on applications of AI. It was a late part of the week, but I think it's also formal trainings which UJ has actually advertised. So maybe if you want to check those out as well, we can try and share that information with you. So I think we're coming towards the end. This is probably the last slide, which is going to be conclusion and resources. So what are some of the key takeaways in terms of academic integrity and building trust and credibility? We understand that academic integrity is foundational. It's essential to trustworthy research, to our research actually being seen as credible. Current challenges, example of AI is the one we spoke about the most, require us to be constantly vigilant, as well as adapting to the new technologies which are out there. Both individuals and institutions in the current age actually share responsibility, and therefore we need to be aware. If we are going and collaborating with someone, we should also be aware of their research practices, because our name is also going onto a paper. Unfortunately, if that particular individual, if there's some issues surrounding plagiarism or anything of academic misconduct, that will not reflect well on you as well. So all we can do is be the change that we want to see, and hopefully that creates a positive culture moving forward. Then we've been through some practical strategies to help navigate the integrity challenges. And basically, if we were to summarize this here, our actions individually, each of our research groups, will actually influence the broader research community. So once again, we want to be the change that we want to actually see. Let me just go down here. So I'd like to thank you all for paying attention and for the contributions. I'd leave the floor open now to anyone who has anything to add to the discussion. And I'm just going to leave the slide up in terms of the references, some of the key references rather, that were used to put this presentation together. So Mr. Nkosi, I'll hand over back to you, and we'll just leave the floor open for any questions or
Thank you so much, Dr. David, for such a very insightful session. We hope and believe that participants and colleagues who have joined today's session, they've learned something today, and they will share with other colleagues who were not able to join in today's session. So colleagues, now it's open for questions. If you do have a question or a contribution, just unmute your mic now. There's no need for you to raise a hand. Just unmute your mic and feel free to ask a question or make any contributions you want to make. Alternatively, you can type in the chat. I will go through the chat just now. Thank you so much, Dr. Lorenzo, once again for your presentation. And thank you, colleagues, for taking your time and engaging and participation in this today's workshop. Thank you so much. If you do have a question, just unmute your mic and ask now.
Thank you for the presentation. Good day, everyone. I have one question. Maybe, yeah. So it's about when you mentioned that about first author and all that, how they grade them or something. So I think that's my question. You said if one is first author and second author, so how do they share the distribute? How do they distribute the units? That's my question.
Oh, yes. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
So this is something that was brought up recently, in that we told as researchers that we need to publish as many papers as possible. And then there was some issues going about where people's names were being added. So if I write 5 papers and you write 5 papers, if we let's just say hypothetically, if I put your name on my papers and vice versa, then collectively, each of us has 10 papers. And that was causing some issues because obviously we actually didn't write 10 papers. So what happens now is that for every paper, as far as my understanding goes, and I'll put some information in the slides before I upload it in terms of units. If there is a paper, if you are first author or the primary author on it, then you'll get a single unit from that. If there are two authors that are on the paper, that unit gets split in two, with each unit going to each of the authors, and it goes on like that. So the more contributors that you have to a particular paper, the fewer the number of units that you're going to get per publication. And that's what we've been told to the best of our understanding. So when we are collaborating, while collaboration is good, also just keep an eye, maybe just read up on some of the frameworks regarding the units assigned to each of the publications. And because obviously these units are used in terms of measuring performance, indicating when you're making applications for promotion and that kind of thing as well. So just something to be aware of. I thought would be interesting for us to mention. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any more questions from anyone? I think I'll hand back to you, Nkosi. Oh.
Just a quick one. Does the quarter ranking of the journal also matters in terms of allocating the points? Maybe if you published in Q1 journal, is there any consideration for that, or is still rated the same way as Q4 when allocating the points? Yeah.
To be honest, I have not had much experience with that, but what I can do is we can actually have a short session dealing with in terms of publication and units, if that would be if we get some feedback from, it seems to be something that people are interested in. So obviously I can just answer from my own knowledge and my own experience. I don't want to give you the wrong answer. So what we can do is we will set up a short workshop. We'll keep it maybe half an hour, and we'll advertise it, where we'll just get the library to go through in terms of publication. If you're publishing in a Q1 versus a Q4, what are the units assigned, and then go into further detail in terms of how units are actually split up between multiple contributors, and any other questions that you may have as well. So I hope that's helpful. I'd rather it be done in that way, so we basically tackle the problem holistically. But yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. I think there was a hand up, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that was.
Yes, if I can add to the question of to answer Dr. Tuli's question, publication and the ranking of journals, they are not the same. You know, when we talk about publication is a process of disseminating research findings through scholarly journals, books, or conference proceedings. So, and this will serve several purposes. By contributing to the field of the study, the researcher is working about establishing credibility of that research. And when we talk about ranking of metrics of journals, that is when we talk about the impact factor, the schemago or journal rank, and so others. And journals are ranked into Q1 to Q4 quartiles. So Q1 is the highest quality. So to Q2, Q3, and so on like that. And we have what we call H5 index 2. That is on Google Scholar, which measures the number of papers, that is H, with the highest H citations in the last 5 years. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that in terms of the rating and the arrangement of the journals, that makes a lot of sense. I'm just not sure if you publish in a Q4 journal compared to a Q1 journal, if the number of units is actually going to be altered. I would think not, but I don't want to give an answer and obviously it be wrong. So I will find out more information, and then I will put the information in the slide. as I've said for some of the other questions. And then we will also try and have an information session in terms of unpacking, when we're publishing, what are we aiming for? Identifying Q1 versus Q2, Q3 journals, what is the advantages and disadvantages. We can discuss open access publishing. I think there is some sessions that's actually planned for later in this month. So we will add these issues to those presentations, and we will send out an email to you guys. So hopefully you guys will attend that session as well. But thank you very much, Dr. Salami, for your contribution. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Nkosi, I'll hand over back to you.
Anyone with a question, colleagues? Dr. Christina, your hand is up. Do you have a question? Dr. Christine, you can go ahead. Dr. Christine, your hand is up. You can unmute your mic.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, we can.
Hello? Oh, thank you. So my question is still on the number of coins. I want to clarify, a conference paper and a journal, the number of points, are they the same? And then you talk about the first author having 1 point. In the case of a PDRF, where you have the host, the PDRF and the host, are they sharing the point too? Or the PDRF as the first author is going to be having 1 point? And then my first question was, the conference paper and the journal, are they the same point, or a journal has higher points in the conference paper? Thank you.
Okay. Oh, and you're welcome. Thank you for the question. I can answer one of your questions, which would be in terms of if you have a conference proceeding. I'm assuming you're talking about a conference proceeding versus a journal article. They are not weighted the same. Therefore, a conference proceeding will not receive the same number of units or a full unit as compared to a journal article. And this I can answer because we have had a meeting with one of the representatives from the research office, or rather in terms of publications, and they've explained to us in terms of the DHET guidelines. So maybe we can have a session, in the same session that I'm talking about, we can address all of these issues. So we have the recording, obviously, of this. We'll try and get them to answer that. Yes, Dr. Adabu?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I want to start with the person that asked him if conference proceeding are points received and journal article, if the points received are the same. They are not. That of conference proceeding is 0.5, and that of journal article is 1. So that is just it. Then for the other person that asked them if a paper published in a Q1, Q2, or Q3, Q4, or Q5 journal, the points received are the same. Yes, the points received are the same. If you are a sole author in the paper, whether or not you published in a Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, or Q5, the point received is the same. That is 1 point. But where it becomes relevant is when it comes to NRF rating. That is where quality is being rated, and it adds to your points there. So because we understand that a Q1 journal, or to publish an article in a Q1 journal, takes more rigor, more rigorous review than Q3, Q4, or Q5. So now when it comes to that NRF rating, quality becomes an assurance. So there you will be rated higher than somebody who has been publishing in Q3, Q4, or Q5 journals. Even if you publish in a Dwaj Index journal, or you're publishing in Web of Science or wherever, the points received Even in a Scopus index journal, the points received is the same for all of them. It is same. If authorship, it is 1. If you are 2, it is 0.5. That is 1 divided by 2. And if you are 3, it is 1 divided by 3, which is 0.33. If you are 4, it is 1 divided by 4, which is 0.25. And like that, the points are being distributed. That is my own contribution for now. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Dr. Adamu. Thank you for that explanation. Really appreciate it. So, yeah, it's good to hear from someone who has the experience in terms of, the NRF ratings and has a bit of background. So thank you very much. Are there any other questions that we have?
Yes, please, can I quickly ask this one in line with what we are asking? In support with the person that asked about PDRF, that you have a host. So is it possible to have a single author publication? Because you have a host who will be the one to probably pay for it, or he knows the source of funding to pay for the publication. Is it possible to have a single author in that regard?
Judging from I've had some discussions with PDRFs, and I've only heard of it happening one time. From my experiences with the PDRFs, where they said that the host actually didn't want their name to appear on the paper. So is it possible? I think that'll have to be a discussion that happens between you and your host. But at the same time, if funding is provided for research by your host, why would they not want their name to appear on the paper as well? So Dr. Damo, I see you put your hand up again. Would you like to answer this question?
Thank you.
And if Dr. Damu. Okay.
Can you hear me?
There we go. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, I was saying that you answered correctly to that question. Yeah, in the sense that, the very last question asked, your response to it is very, very correct in the sense that whether or not to include your host in a paper depends on your host. Some hosts may be like, do not include my name for now until you hit your target for the year. Some hosts may say, my name must be included in all your papers, and there must be a reason for that. There must be a reason for that. So it all depends on your host. Then if your host insists, then you must include your host name to share your 1 point, which is 0.5 allocated to each of you. Then if your host insists that a third professor or a third author be included in the paper, it means the 3 of you will be sharing points. Then if you, as the main author, the PDRF, you have the PDRF or the PhD students, you have another person that you included in the paper, plus your host making 3, you guys are sharing the point, 0.33. Then I want to include something. Somebody once asked a question that what about you including your host in a paper? I think someone asked that question. That does he have any? I think I'm not too sure about the question anymore. Not too sure about it. I think I've forgotten the question. Yeah.
No problem, Dr. Adamu.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. We really appreciate it.
Welcome.
We'll leave the.
Then I want to add to the submission of Dr. Adam. It's very, very good to collaborate. I will advise you to add the name of your host because there is advantage in collaboration in research. Because we see that collaboration is a key driver of innovation and efficiency and impact in that academic work or scientific research. So it's very, very good. Collaboration in research is more efficient than a sole author in writing of research. That's my own submission. Thank you.
Thank you. We will leave the floor open for another minute if there's any other questions. If there's no other questions, then I think we will, well, Mr. Nkosi can probably end the session if there's no further questions.
Thank you so much for that contributions to colleagues. I don't know if anyone has a question. Just unmute your mic, just like other colleagues are doing, and ask a question or just make your contribution. We have now 30 seconds before we can close the session. Well, in the absence of question, I would like to thank our facilitator once again, Dr. Lorenzo David, for sharing your insights and all your contribution to such an engaging and meaningful session. We thank you for that. Before we close, colleagues, please take a moment to fill out the feedback and evaluation form. The link has been shared in the chat. Your feedback helps us tailor and improve future workshops. Thank you for your time, your contributions, and your ongoing commitment to responsible research practices. We do have a workshop tomorrow at 12 on ethical research practices, preventing misconduct. A registration link for that workshop will be shared to everyone who attended today. So please do register for that workshop. We encourage and request you colleagues to register for the workshop before attending, because that helps us in terms of creating a report for each of the workshop that we are doing. So we need those details of you to say that you attended the workshop. And after you have attended the workshop, and filled in the evaluation form, you can get a certificate of attendance via the RCT management system, which I've mentioned earlier to those that joined late. The RCT has now a management system which is integrated to ULink. It's under UJ tools, under services, and then you go, the last option, it's RCTMS. So if you are unable to register or you encounter any problems, please to reach us on supervision calls or RCT inquiries, then we will able to assist you with registration. That platform has all our workshop, upcoming and previous workshops. So you will access all the recordings, all the upcoming workshops, and register that site and attend via the management system. And also you will be able to see all our events, upcoming events, and the proceeding of all the services that we are providing. With that being said, thank you so much, colleagues, for your time, your contributions, and your ongoing commitment to a responsible research practices. Stay curious, stay ethical, and keep building trust through your work. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you so much, colleagues.
Thank you. Goodbye.